create an entity for it. Okay, can everyone see my screen? You see it?
I see it.
Okay.
Yeah, we see it.
Cool. Okay. Hey everyone. My name is Roncho. I've been in the QA field for a bit, but as a sort of a lot of people sort of exploring WebXR and sort of developing virtual worlds for myself and sort of like just passionate about like creating virtual environments for the past few years and learned quite a bit from so many people, and super thankful for all the Aframe contributors and other developers that are sort of open sourcing a lot of their knowledge. So people like me and someone who's trying to enter the field or just want to build something that they can get started. For me, I just wanted to sort of just build things that are focused on like not just like learning, but I wanted to put it into like a practical applications. And these are just sort of like what Zach kind of mentioned earlier, just sort of like things that I want to build for myself and like my friends or family or community. And it doesn't have to be. It's sort of like this talk is actually like Aframe101. Basically, I wanted to kind of regroup and record this and sort of help. Hopefully, I'm sure like everyone else here, like they may be more familiar with it from a development perspective, but I wanted to kind of showcase or kind of share the journey and very basic, simple scenes that we can try to build even today, and then hopefully this gets like basic fundamentals, right? So we wanted to build basic fundamentals so that someone can kind of use it to build more complex products. Let me just kind of showcase some of the projects that I've been kind of playing around with. So for example, like this chess VR. Let me see if this plays up. So basically, this was a very simple environment. I was able to add the models, and then it has controllers, so you can actually like the Quest 2 controllers. You can walk around and teleport. Zach was kind enough to help me with the physics, so you can actually like play chess. You pick it up and play basically. Eventually, the goal is to kind of get it like to a multiplayer where someone can come in and we can both sort of play chess together. I'll go through and then another one. This was like a Diwali festival, like a Hindu festival that happens. This was interesting because I was able to use like these A-frame examples and then sort of incorporate a lot more functionality to it. So for example, like clicking on a button and then you get these fireworks. So like sort of like this particle animation. Building a more complex scene basically, and so these are like 3JS components, or it's sort of like just more complex, I guess, from a code perspective. And then let me show you. And then so this was another like a festival thing. This was back in like 2018. Give me a second while it loads. Yeah, so this actually does have multiplayer, like the network A-frame component to it. So this was like back in 2018 when I was just like, oh, like we have like a Ganesh festival in India. But due to COVID, they weren't able to like go to the temple or have have some sort of celebrate, because as you can see, like there are lots of people like celebrated the Lord Ganesha's festival and kind of get together. It's for like 10 days, but so it would be like, what if what it would look like in virtual reality, and can we have multiple, like I can invite my family over and we can sort of celebrate or whatnot. So it's like it was a good experience to kind of like add like particle systems, a model, curved images, and I guess the multiplayer aspect of it, or rather like just a network scene basically, so we can communicate and things like that. Um, then I want to show you one more. And then this was sort of like the idea of kind of merging 2D dynamic data, right? So like these are just random images that are kind of dynamically created on your virtual scene. So if you can imagine, like these are just API calls to a random I forgot the open like copy like open data or whatnot. So we can actually see, just relax, sit back, and just watch some images, for example, and you can see like this being able to kind of pull dynamic data in your scene would definitely be useful to create more immersive experience from a 2D data, for example, right? 2D images. You could even have text, whatnot, so you can create a story, and obviously the NFT thing going on. So I'm sure just sit back and just watch like NFTs or whatnot. But so this was a little bit more complex, not complex, but just dynamic data. And then I have like a simple, sorry. And then this simple A-frame environment is just a basic starter kit that has the controllers, that has the environment, and if someone wants to like get started, I would just kind of point them to the simple A-frame environment, and then they can just kind of build it from there. Give me a second. Let me see if I can just pull that up real quick. Just want to show the code a little bit. So this is a very all it is just the HTML. I have all the teleportation script and things, but like you can see, it's like an Egypt scene. So I was trying to teach like one of my little brothers, like cousin brothers, to kind of create a scene, because they had an Egypt. They were learning about Egypt in their school, so it was like, okay, well, like it's doesn't really take that much because we have like the A-frame environment with the Egypt, and we would just get a 3D model and then positioning it, and then you get like a simple like scene basically, right? So go back to our environment. So these were just like some of the demos that I've been kind of working and sort of just building to learn, but also have practical use cases for it. So again, this is just a simple example of like, you have your head, your scripts, and then you can have the entity for your environment, and then your 3D models, for example, in the asset tag. Yeah, again, so some of the things I want to kind of backtrack a little bit in terms of like, let's say you're not a developer, you're not you're not a 3D artist. Can you get started on building a virtual scene, and what it would take, the mindset of it as well. Like it's unlike 2D web, which is X and Y, meaning it's just a plain page, and you can go up and down, and you can click through it, and you can go up and down to the next page, right? Unlike that, when we're creating a 360 environment, we have to think about X, Y, and Z, right? So you can actually, just like how we're in this in Cena, like I'm moving around back and forth. So this is X, Y, and Z coordinate, which basically goes up three-dimensional, basically, right? But there are a lot of similarities to traditional HTML pages, where you have the head tag, the body tag, and the scene inside of the body. And you would import your statements and import different libraries or scripts, etc. So I wanted to create a very simple scene so that someone can kind of understand it. So things that you would need, like such as like assets, which are like 3D models, or textures that you're gonna need, let's say like the ground that you're gonna walk on, and then like a controllers, because you're gonna need to like teleport, or WSD or mobile controllers, etc. Also physics, you may need physics because it's a 3D environment. So then, like an object, you can pick an object up and then throw it around, or more complex like game-like physics where you shoot someone or like shoot like different objects or whatnot. So, so these are some of the things that you might want to consider. Um, and then so I want to talk about like how like the A-frame component system, the power of open source and collaboration, and just like I mean, I'm not like a developer, but that doesn't mean I'm just trying to get over that imposter syndrome, where like want to empower other people to get into the space so that they can create their tools and not specifically say like, oh, I can't build this out, but leverage other developers, and walking on top of shoulders of giants, right? Basically, you leveraging other people's open source contribution, and then just getting started from there. I want to take a look at just the components, few of the components, and how kind of it works. So let me go back. So like a very simple A-frame. So like you're building a scene, and you don't want to. You just the first thing is you kind of want to create a scene that you're gonna build your use case over. So be able to just kind of call the environment component, and in the preset there's already pre-made scenes that you can just like how all I have to do was just put preset Egypt, and I was able to get that entire Egypt scene. And as you can see, there are a lot more different environments that you can play around with based on what you want. Just to kind of get started, you can obviously get deeper and don't have to use this environment and kind of build the ground and the scene from ground up. But for now, like just as we're just like learning and things like that, do want to talk about a little bit of like the parameters. So like let's say you have a forest, but then you can change the ground color, you can change the sky color, you can change the lighting. So you just sort of like add these parameters inside of it, to be able to get what you want. Another thing is like an A-frame particle. These are just basics components that I kind of put together, but there's so many of them that's why I kind of love A-frame, because of the community and different components that basically help to build a product where you don't have to build everything from scratch, right? So like different particles that you can add, like the Ganesh thing, we had the particles of like stars, and you can color it different ways. And then let's talk about like I was able to use like super hand, so which is just sort of like Will Murphy. So this is just a component that you would add to your scene to add like controllers and mouse and things like that, different things that you would need. And then the other thing I want to talk about is the when you're building a scene, you're gonna want to position it in these coordinates depending on what you're building. So when you press Control Alt I on your scene, you get this inspector where you can kind of take a look at what it is, and you can scale it, position it, and then copy those X, Y, and Z coordinates or different parameters and put it in your scene. We'll kind of, when we try to build the scene, we can kind of go through this. And one more, we have A-frame extras that has a lot more. Obviously, Don Curtis is like one of the core contributors to A-frame, and he has a lot of examples and different things that you would need, animations or like different things that you would basically need for your project. So the point is really like leveraging different components and and being able to use it. Like, Zach is here, and I did not know that, but yeah, like Zach has been making like his own personal diversity artist um, um, project, and it has a lot of different tools and things that you can use. For example, like his just a little small component off of VRTist, which was just physics stuff, physics X, or just normal physics. I forgot which one. But yeah, so being able to like leverage even a small part of his project that you can do. So the point really is like, you can sort of like leverage different components. You can create your own custom JavaScript and then import it, or even use 3JS and sort of import it in your project. So like, getting started, a lot of people, even for me, like if you haven't been following, it's like it's hard to kind of gauge which path to take in terms of like, most people will say like 3JS, but that's like it's sort of like depending on you, right? Your personal level, personal like development, understanding or whatnot. So if you can create a scene using 3JS or Aframe, but Aframe is already leveraging 3JS and giving us like entity system or whatnot, so we don't have to necessarily use 3JS in terms of like pure way, but we can leverage different components or different things in your project when you need to create your environment. And then from a testing perspective, everything like from just from like a QA background, it's important to kind of think about the user experience and the quality of it. And in a virtual environment, especially on the web, you have to kind of focus on like the 3D assets, the size of it, and then rendering it. So some of the tools, like for example GLTF report, it gives you sort of like, you can upload your file and you can view more data around it, and it actually sometimes even like gives you let me see if I can upload a file like this one. Let's see. So you're able to like kind of gauge. Yeah, so this is the scene like from a Christmas. Like we're gonna try to let's try to build like a small Christmas scene today if we can. And I got this model from Sketchfab and downloaded it, but then want to make sure that these are how big it is, like 3 MB. You can actually like compress it. I don't know like too much about, like I'm still playing around with this tool. Don McCurdy's like making it, and like he's also like leveraging it. There's lot more different like things that you can like from a texture perspective. So optimizing your 3D assets. So one of the tools is that, and then VR Superstats. Also, I think we talked to Kyle probably from last meetup. Kyle, I think brought this up, and so sort of similar, where it's like you add your metrics, basically like a monitoring system of your scene to see, okay, how much FPS like it is, and different monitoring of your scene, whether like you loaded too many 3D objects or not, things like that, and a few other ones I wanted to kind of bring up. So these are like older ones, like 4 years ago, but the thing is, it still works. You can still use it. Doesn't really matter. This one is sort of like automate. I start to play with it a little bit more, but being able to write more unit tests, I think, in your project, using this, and like karma and unit tests. So like more like A-frame component. Like as you can see, I think it's like being able to like test out your user inputs in your scene. I guess A-frame inspector, I think I talked about. The other thing is like a GLB packer. That was just a tool to like, when we typically I personally typically just use a GLB package so that I only have one file, which is the GLB that has the textures and everything inside of it. So I'll just like use it here, and to be able to like, you just drag the folders and or you can download it. One thing I personally, so I've been using like Cypress.io in a work, which is like an end-to-end framework for JavaScript applications. So we don't. I think we still have to like work on like getting into the DOM element, or like the canvas element of the scene. But there are like you can use Cypress as well to sort of like. I just want to show you real quick. You can use a JavaScript framework that typically tests 2D apps basically, and instead like you can just like see now how you onboarded it. So we're in a scene right now, but there are a lot of different functionalities like the share button and all these different buttons and things like that, which you can leverage to test out your product from a 2D perspective, and then use the other tools to test out your 3D scene basically. So yeah, let me see if I yeah. So as you can see, like these are like, you can sort of use the JavaScript to kind of use your end-to-end automated way of a user flow. Could be onboarding, could be something else like your product, whatever your product is basically from a VR perspective. And then yeah, so this was just to see if I can actually build it, and I was able to like build a script around it. So this is cool. Testing is still, since development is still early on, testing is also improving and growing. I didn't like I maybe next time I'll go a little bit deeper in terms of like, once we have a better like end-to-end framework for testing A-frame components. But for now, just wanted to kind of build out or like showcase some simple different tools to test your apps basically. Yeah, and then yeah, let's try to build something together, I guess. Let me pull up this. So I guess obviously Christmas is coming soon, and I basically just created using my simple glitch, and then we have some smart people in our rooms to help us to help us. So let's say we have a Christmas scene, right? I'm gonna go into it. Code. I basically just created this like 15 minutes ago or something, just so to kind of see. But yeah, let's take a look. So we can just take a look at the playing out. So these are the script. These are yep. So we have that. Now what we want to do, maybe someone can help us, like so like let's say we wanted to add particles where what we saw earlier. Let me see if I can just pull up the particles. So I want to add some snow, obviously, to do this. So let's just take a look. Yeah, so we would have to import the particle system component, and we'll go to our glitch, and hey, okay, so we figured out what was wrong. So as you can see, this was posted 3 years ago, and then I take a look at the snow example. So if it's working here, that means it should be working, right? The snow particles. So when we look at the actual importing, so you can see here, it's actually kind of imported into the scene. So when I took a look at the component from the GitHub, basically, and it seems like there is like there was a fix to upgrade it, basically, since it was older. So what I did was I copied this code basically, and then I created a JS, and then I imported that, um, the entire the component, basically the particle system fix of that. So that, and then when I importing it, so I'm importing it directly from my project instead of actually importing through through the minified script, basically. But anyways, so now we have snow, right? And so let's take a step back real quick. And so we have our particles that we preset to snow. Let's say we do like, that's what happens if we do like 15,000 to that. Let's see if we get a lot of snow. And maybe let's. Whoa! All right, here, we can take a look at here. So we do have to position. Oh wow! Okay, that's a lot of snow. Okay, so let's take a step back. We'll put this back to 5,000 particle count, and then as you can see, you can play around with uh, the the property and the parameters, basically. As you can see, and change it around. So for now, I just want to do one last thing, which is this. As you can see, you're very close to it. So I'm gonna go Control Alt I. I'm just gonna reposition. I'm scrolling back. I'm just gonna reposition everything so that it looks better, basically. So as you can see, this is the model. What I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna move it back a little bit. Yeah, that sounds good. And then as you see the rotation, so the X is 0, Y, and then Z. So Z axis is what we basically pushed it back, right? So I'm gonna copy that, go back to my, and then here is my model position. So it was like, let's see, 1 second, okay. So I copied that entire thing, and I'm just doing it that way. Okay, so as you can see, it's moved it back. So I'm gonna just delete the old position, and then I can just position it a little bit. So negative 12, so it's kind of pushing it backwards. So we'll do negative 15, for example. And yeah, okay. And one more thing, since we're like don't want to fall off, we want to create like a ground structure. So what I did was I created like this ground. So in Aframe there is a plane. So let me just comment this out. But first I added a ground image that's sourcing to the CDN link, and then I'm gonna call a plane element of Aframe. Okay, and yeah, and boom, and we have, so the we can make this a little bit larger actually. So let's just make it like 100 100. Okay, now there we go. So let's just check it out really quick on the side, and yeah, and we have our Christmas, Xmas, and XR. We'll keep updating it, and yeah, thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks.